I paid for everything my family needed, then found out my brother forged my name for a loan. Hi, I'm Seth. I'm 31. And I didn't set out to ruin my parents' lives just to protect my own. It all started with a dinner reservation. That's how small the final straw was. A dinner reservation I made for my parents' 35th anniversary. I paid in advance. I called the restaurant to make sure they had the window table they liked. I even ordered a bottle of wine from the year they got married. Then, on the day, I showed up early to surprise them. But when I got there, the hostess said they'd already been seated. I walked in, and saw them sitting across from my younger brother, Darren. My mother was laughing, my dad holding up a glass like it was a toast. My chair, the one I'd booked, was already filled. No one had mentioned him coming. No one texted me. And when I walked up stunned, my mom blinked and said, "Oh, you made it after all." After all. Like I was the afterthought. Again. Let me explain Darren for a second. Imagine the human version of an oops text message. Charming when he wants something, slippery when he doesn't. He's 6 years younger than me, with a talent for borrowing money and burning bridges. The prodigal son if the prodigal son never actually came back with anything. He's had 5 jobs, 3 girlfriends, and 2 stints. Crashing at our place. Just this year. But somehow, they always framed it like he was just figuring things out. He just needs support. Not everyone is like you, Seth. You've always been so stable. That night, they clinked glasses with him like he bought the wine, like he made the reservation, like he hadn't skipped Dad's 60th birthday and borrowed $5,000 from me 3 months ago to start a detailing business. That vanished before he finished the website. I sat there, watching him tell a story I knew was half made up, and something cracked. I paid the bill without a word. My mom smiled and said, "Thank you, Darren. This was so thoughtful." He nodded like he earned it. And I said nothing. But the next day, I started taking notes. Not mental ones, actual ones. A list of everything I'd done, everything I'd paid for, everything I'd stayed silent about. And on the top of that list I wrote 5 words. You don't owe them peace. I started with the money. Not because it was about money, but because it was measurable. Trackable. Concrete. In the last 4 years alone, I'd given my parents over $18,000. Rent help when their mortgage adjusted. Emergency dental for Mom. Dad's car registration and tires one winter when he said the roads were too icy to risk going out on bald wheels. I never complained. I told myself, they're getting older. I'm doing well. This is just what family does. Then I looked at how much I'd given Darren. $11,250. In chunks. A few hundred here. 1,000 there. Some wired directly to a landlord. Some transferred through apps with captions like, "You got this," or, "Last time, I swear." I was the guy he called when his own card stopped working. And every time, my parents praised me. "You're such a good brother. You really came through. You're the glue." Glue gets poured between broken pieces. It holds the cracks, gets pressed between sharp edges, never gets seen once everything looks whole again. And I was done being glue. So I stopped responding to money requests. The first one came in from Darren 2 weeks later. "Bro, car died. $350 to fix the alternator. I'll Venmo you back Friday. Promise." I ignored it. The next day, a call from Mom. "Darren says you're not helping anymore? Is something wrong?" "Is something wrong?" I told her I was saving for something. She asked what? I said, "A boundary." She laughed. Actually laughed. Like I'd told a cute joke and not drawn a line. "Oh, Seth," she said. "Don't be dramatic. You know he's not like you." "I do," I said. "That's the problem." And I hung up. That was the first time in my entire adult life I ended a call with my mother without saying, "Love you." It felt like a door locking. And it felt good. 3 weeks later, the group text exploded. My mom, Darren, me. I was in a meeting when it started buzzing. 8 messages in under 2 minutes. MOM, Darren's being evicted. MOM, the landlord is being unreasonable. MOM, he only missed 1 payment. Darren, bro, I just need 1 month. MOM, Seth, can you please help him this once? MOM, I told him you would. Darren, you know I'll pay you back. And then the kicker. MOM, you always come through. I stared at my phone. That sentence. It wasn't a compliment. It was an expectation wrapped in praise. A command disguised as love. I replied with one sentence. I can't help this time. 5 minutes of silence. Then Darren called. I didn't answer. He texted instead. Seriously? You're going to let your brother be homeless? That's when the anger started to boil, not because he asked, but because I realized he truly believed I owed him. That being born 6 years ahead of him meant I was permanently on the hook for every mistake he made. That night I got a call from my dad. That was rare. Dad's never been the talker. Son, he said, your mother's upset. Darren's in a tight spot. Can't you just... Just what, Dad? I interrupted. Bail him out again? Buy peace with my own savings? Like always. He went quiet. I'm not doing it anymore. I said. I'm not the bank. I'm not the backup plan. I'm not the glue. I'm Seth. Your son. And I'm allowed to say no. He sighed. You've changed. No. I said. I finally noticed who hasn't. He didn't yell. He just said, fine. And hung up. By morning, Darren had posted on Facebook. Wild how some people preach family but act like strangers when it matters. Guess money changes people. 2 likes. One from our aunt. One from my mother. I stared at that post, then printed it. I pinned it to the wall next to my desk. Right under the words, you don't know them, peace. Because what came next? It wasn't about revenge. It was about finally choosing me. It wasn't until mid-October that I found out Darren had moved back in with our parents. I only learned this because I stopped by unannounced to drop off some legal paperwork for a trust one was helping them set up. Mom opened the door looking flustered, wearing one of Dad's old button-downs and mismatched socks. That was already weird. Then I heard Darren's voice from inside. Is that him? Tell him I'm not here. She froze. Just long enough for me to hear it. I stepped inside anyway. The living room looked like a college dorm, open pizza box, socks on the coffee table, a laptop precariously balanced on a couch armrest. My father, once a military man who used to vacuum the garage, was in his recliner watching sports like none of it was happening. I blinked. You didn't tell me Darren moved back in. Mom gave a tight smile. It's temporary. Dad didn't look up. He's just regrouping. I turned to my mom. You said he had an apartment. Well, he did, she said, eyes darting to the hallway. But you know how it is. Landlords these days. I didn't answer. I just walked to the table and put down the paperwork I'd brought. Then I looked at Dad and said, just so you both know, I'm taking myself off as financial power of attorney. That got their attention. What? Mom asked. I'm removing myself from anything where I'm responsible for your accounts. I'll still help if you need advice, but I'm not signing anything on your behalf. Not after last time. Mom's eyes welled up. That was an accident. Darren didn't mean to use the joint card. That accident dropped my credit score 40 points and nearly cost me a mortgage pre-approval. I said flatly. That's not a fender bender. That's theft with a smile. From the hallway, Darren appeared, boxers, no shirt, holding a half-eaten granola bar. You're so dramatic, man. It's not like you're poor. I looked at him. Really looked. 31 years old, living rent-free, no job, wearing an expression that said you're the idiot for caring. I'm not poor, I said. But you are. Poor in self-respect. Poor in effort. Poor in shame. He rolled his eyes and muttered something, slinking back down the hall. I turned to my parents. You're allowed to love him. But I'm allowed to leave the mess behind. Mom whispered. He's your brother. Exactly, I said. Not my responsibility. I walked out without waiting for their reply. Back in my car, I exhaled so hard it hurt. For the first time in years, I hadn't swallowed it. I hadn't smoothed it over. I just told the truth. And truth, I was learning, was a boundary all its own. The silence that followed was the loudest sound I'd ever heard from my family. No texts. No calls. No guilt-laced voicemails about what family means. It was like I'd been temporarily voted off the island for bad behavior, specifically, the behavior of no longer enabling a full-grown man who still referred to himself in the third person when asking for gas money. But the break was good. I slept better. Ate better. Even started running again. Something about sweating out years of resentment on a dark sidewalk with earbuds in and 0 family group chat notifications felt like therapy with better calves. Until November. That's when my parents' car broke down. And like clockwork, The quiet ended. It started with a text from Mom. Hey sweetheart. Quick question, can you help us cover a small car repair? Just until payday. I stared at it. For 3 full minutes. Then responded. Did you try Darren first? Her reply came almost instantly. He's in between things. I didn't answer. An hour later, a call from Dad. Straight to voicemail. Then a text from Darren. You're really gonna leave them stuck over a stupid car? Thought you were better than that. I typed a reply. Deleted it. Typed again. Deleted again. Then I just sent one sentence. I am better than that. That's why I'm saying no. And here's the thing, I wasn't trying to punish them. I wasn't trying to be cruel. I was simply done paying for the family's recurring mistakes like some emotional credit card with no limit and no points. They figured it out, by the way. The next week I saw them driving a used sedan that looked like it came with a cassette player and a faint smell of old fries. And you know what? They survived. No one died. No one starved. The world didn't end because Seth stopped writing checks. And that's when I realized something no one tells you growing up in a guilt economy. Saying no is not cruelty. It's currency. And I was finally rich. It was around Christmas that the storm finally rolled back in. I should have known it would come. The holidays in my family had always been a mix of passive-aggressive casserole dishes and unspoken scorecards. Who brought what? Who sat where? Who disappointed who without saying a word? This year, I was invited with a text that said, Hope you'll join us for Christmas Eve dinner. Darren's making his famous garlic mashed. We'd love to have the whole family back together. Translation, Darren still lives here, and we're pretending everything's fine. I stared at that message while holding a box of holiday cards I had just finished addressing. Not one of them was to a family member. That was new. I didn't reply right away. I didn't even decide right away. But 3 days before Christmas, I found myself in Target picking up wine and a pie and a vague sense of guilt. Not because I missed them, but because I still had that tiny, traitorous voice in my head whispering, maybe this year will be different. Spoiler, it wasn't. I walked in, and the first thing I saw was Darren, holding court in the living room like a divorced uncle on house arrest. He greeted me with a smirk and a one-armed hug. Look who finally remembered where we live. I smiled back. A tight, pressurized smile that could have cracked glass. Dinner was predictable. Darren talked over everyone. Mom doted on him like he was an orphan prince. Dad mostly drank. And when I tried to bring up my recent promotion, director of product at a company I helped rebuild from the ground up, Mom cut in to ask if Darren had remembered to pick up extra ice for his party later that week. He hadn't. After dinner, Mom pulled me aside in the hallway. You seem tense tonight, she said gently. I'm not tense, I replied. I'm just aware. Of what? I gestured vaguely toward the kitchen. Of how normal this dysfunction is to everyone but me. She frowned. This isn't dysfunction. It's family. No, I said. It's favoritism, weaponized guilt, and a 31-year-old squatter who contributes nothing but garlic breath and bad credit. That hit her. Her face twitched. She started to say something, then stopped. You've changed, she finally said. I've healed, I corrected. You just never learn how to love someone without using them. Then I kissed her cheek, wished her a good night, and walked out into the cold with my jacket still unzipped. I didn't feel festive. But I felt real. And real beats cheerful lies every time. January brought snow, and with it, the latest installment of the Darren financial saga. I was at work, elbows deep in a product sprint, when my personal email pinged. Subject line, urgent, rental agreement co-signature needed. The sender? A leasing agent. Attached was an unsigned rental application with Darren's name, my old email address listed as his secondary contact, and my name typed in as guarantor. I called the office immediately. Hi, yes, Seth Brenner here. I didn't authorize any of this. I'm not co-signing a lease. The woman on the other end sighed. Oh. Darren said you were helping him out? That the family had discussed it. Yeah. I bet he did. I hung up, heart racing, not from panic, but fury. This wasn't just a lazy ask. This was a calculated gamble. He thought if he filled in the blanks, I'd feel too guilty to erase them. That night, I confronted my parents on the phone. Dad answered. He's just trying to get back on his feet. By faking my signature? I asked flatly. There was a pause. Then my mom's voice came in from the background. Seth, he just needs a chance. No, he needs a mirror and a job. I snapped. And you need to stop enabling criminal behavior under the banner of family loyalty. That's harsh, she said. No, it's accurate. I'm 31. He's 25. At his age, I was working 2 jobs, paying my student loans, and sending you money to help with the electric bill. He's forging rental agreements. Silence. I'm not angry. I added. I'm just done pretending this is normal. It's not. And I'm not co-signing anything. Not ever. Not for him. Not for anyone. Then I said the one sentence I'd been afraid to say for years. If he gets evicted, that's his story, not my responsibility. That landed like a glass shattering in the background. I could hear the wind on the line. Then a door closing. Maybe someone left the room. Maybe it was just the illusion of consequences finally walking in. Either way, I hung up before they could answer. And for the first time in months, I slept like I didn't owe anyone a damn thing. It happened quietly, like most betrayals do. Late February, I got a letter in the mail from a collections agency. I almost tossed it, assuming it was junk. But something about the heavy envelope and formal seal made me pause. I opened it. Inside. Notice of delinquency. Amount due, $9,438.72. Creditor, Rapid Advance Title Loans. Co-signed by Seth Brenner. I stared at the page, reread the name, the date, the signature. My signature. Except I never signed anything. And then the dread set in. Cold and fast, like falling through ice. Darren. I drove straight to the agency's office with the letter in hand and asked to see the original documents. After 20 minutes of side eyes and half whispers between cubicles, a manager came out holding a file. Looks like the co-signer provided a digital signature through our remote platform, he said. Do you have an IP address? He blinked. Yeah? Actually, we do. He turned the screen toward me. The IP matched the same range as my parents' home Wi-Fi. And the timestamp? 3 days after Christmas Eve dinner. He'd used my name. My credit. Again. But this time, it wasn't a favor or a plea. It was full-blown fraud. I didn't drive home. I drove to the police station. I filed the report. I signed affidavits. I even contacted a lawyer I'd used once before during a dispute with a freelance client who tried to stiff me on payment. He was happy to help. I didn't tell my parents. Not at first. I wanted to wait until it was official. Until the documents were in place. Until the cease and desist letters had been drafted and mailed. Until the dispute had been filed with the credit bureaus. Until every loose string was wrapped tight with legal knots. And once all that was done, I showed up on a Sunday morning and handed my mother an envelope with the report inside. She didn't open it. She just stared at me like I just slapped her. What is this? Proof, I said. Of what he did. And what I'm doing about it. Her hands trembled. My father walked in from the kitchen, holding a mug. What's going on? He committed identity fraud, I said. And I'm pressing charges. My mother gasped. You can't do that. He's your brother. I can, I said. And I am. Because I'm also your son. The one you keep sacrificing to protect him. Dad didn't say a word. He just sat down. Slowly. Like gravity had gotten heavier. Mom tried again. He didn't mean it. He never does, I said. And yet it keeps happening. I turned to go. But then I stopped and added. He's not the only one who forged something. You both signed a fantasy where he gets unlimited chances and I get infinite patience. I'm shredding that contract. Today. And then I left. Because the truth is, when someone steals from you, you don't owe them a second chance. You owe yourself a first one. The fallout wasn't explosive, it was surgical. Precise. Because I'd learned from the best, years of watching chaos mask as charm, apologies delivered like negotiations, guilt used like currency. Now, I was the one holding the scalpel. Within a week of the police report, Darren finally called me. Not to apologize, of course. To scream. You really filed charges? He barked. Are you serious right now? You're going to ruin my life over some loan? I didn't even flinch. You already ruined your credit, Darren. I'm just making sure it doesn't take mine with it. I'm your brother. And I'm the idiot who used to think that meant something. I said. Then he said it. I was desperate, man. You wouldn't help. What else was I supposed to do? That sentence sat in the air like a confession with dirt under its fingernails. He thought desperation made it okay. That being cornered made theft forgivable. I didn't yell. I didn't argue. I just said, actions have consequences. You're about to meet yours. He cursed. Called me cold. Said I was throwing away our family. And I said, no. I'm refusing to keep carrying it. Click. My mother texted later that day, he's hurting, Seth. Isn't that punishment enough? I replied, no. Consequences aren't punishment. They're the part of growing up you never made him do. And I didn't hear from them after that. The fraud claim went through. My credit was repaired. My name cleared. The case didn't go to trial. First-time offender, deferred adjudication, restitution payments. But the point was made. He had to face it. Publicly. On paper. His name, not mine, on the dotted line. Afterward, I bought myself a gift. A key holder for my front door that said, no more surprise guests. Or surprise debts. I hung it up and stared at it for a while. And for the first time since this entire mess began, I didn't feel like the responsible one. I felt like the free one. 3 months later, spring rolled in like a sigh of relief. The trees bloomed. My inbox stayed blissfully free of family disasters. My phone was quiet except for actual friends. I was good. And then I got an invitation. A cream-colored envelope in real mail, with my name handwritten in cursive that tried too hard to look elegant. Inside, a formal invite to my parents' family reconciliation dinner. I actually laughed out loud. Enclosed was a note, from my mother. We believe it's time to heal. Darren has apologized. We'd love to start over. Please come with an open heart. It ended with a postscript. P.S. We're asking everyone to bring a dish. I nearly choked on the irony. Asking for reconciliation and a casserole in the same breath? Classic. I didn't RSVP. I didn't go. Instead, I spent that Sunday with someone who never once made me feel like I had to earn love, myself. I cooked a steak, poured a glass of wine, and sat on my balcony with my dog at my feet, and the kind of peace that doesn't come from being right, it comes from being done. Later that night, my phone buzzed. A picture from the dinner. My parents, Darren, a few distant cousins. Tight smiles. Forced cheer. The caption read, family, no matter what. And I realized something profound. They still didn't get it. They still thought forgiveness was a reset button. That if enough time passed, the damage disappeared. That family was an eraser. But I wasn't playing that game anymore. I'd finally stopped showing up to battles where my only role was to bleed. This wasn't estrangement. It was escape. And I was never going back. It's funny how peace feels like nothing at first. No fireworks. No fanfare. Just silence. A clean inbox. A quiet phone. Groceries in the fridge and no one asking you for a small favor. That costs $600 and a piece of your dignity. In that nothing, I found everything. I moved to a new place. Nothing fancy, just brighter. High windows. Soft light in the morning. Space that didn't carry old echoes. I even bought a second-hand record player and started listening to music like it was therapy. Sam Cooke, Nina Simone, Springsteen on Sunday mornings. I didn't post about it. I didn't send my parents the address. I didn't owe them that anymore. What I did do was start building again, for me. I took on projects I actually liked. Spent money without guilt. Said yes to weekend trips. Laughed louder. Slept deeper. People started to notice. Friends who'd only ever seen me as the steady one started saying things like, "You seem lighter," or, "I didn't know you were this funny." And the truth is, neither did I. I wasn't rebuilding after the collapse of a relationship. I was discovering who I was without the burden of being responsible for people who never were. Then, one day, I got a text from my cousin Ava. We'd never been close, but she always had a good read on things. Quiet girl. Listened more than she talked. "I know things are tense," she wrote. "But I just wanted to say, I think you did the right thing. Darren needed to hit a wall. And you were the only one willing to let him crash." I stared at that message longer than I meant to. It felt like oxygen. Because I hadn't needed validation, but I hadn't realized how long I'd gone without being seen. That weekend I hosted a few friends for dinner. Real friends. People who showed up without keeping score. We laughed, spilled wine, made bad pasta, and stayed too late. As they left, one of them hugged me and said, "You've got a good home here." And for the first time in my life, I believed that. Not because it was perfect, but because it was mine. I didn't burn bridges. I just stopped rebuilding them every time someone else lit a match. My peace isn't a middle finger, it's a boundary wrapped in silence. Darren still spins his wheels. My parents still host dinners. But me? I wake up, breathe deep, and build a life that doesn't depend on being needed to be valuable. I used to think love meant sacrifice. Now I know, real love never asks you to disappear to keep someone else comfortable. And I'm finally, beautifully visible.